This is otherwise state champ Alex Thompson. This is Josh Elwer from the University of Northern Iowa, and you're listening to Potentially Dangerous on IA Russell.
Hey, is this heaven?
No, it's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from IA Russell.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IA Russell. Time to strap it up and get to the show. Welcome back to Potentially Dangerous, episode 85. I'm your host, Tony Hager. Co-hosting with me is my good man, Ross Bartachek, out of North Liberty, Iowa. This podcast is presented to you by MyHouse Sports Gear. You can check it out on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, all your podcast-friendly apps throughout the summer, throughout the season. Make sure you subscribe and get this sucker on your phone. So,
hey, I just got us on TuneIn Radio.
TuneIn Radio?
Yeah, that's the latest platform we just showed up on.
Boom. We are on iHeart, too. I know that, for podcasts, anyways.
Yeah.
Not live radio, so I don't even know where we're all at now. So, I mean, if you can't find it, I mean, you're just straight up, technology is not your friend. So, that's just, you fail in that department.
We make it pretty easy.
It's pretty easy, yeah. Or you can just go to straight IARussell.com and find it. So, then, big weekend, Easter weekend for me. Took the kids out, and it rained on us. My boy, I was struggling with, there's 50 kids sitting in this park, and, in today's world, everybody wins and everybody gets an egg, and I was just thinking there, do I just let my kid just tackle people and say, hey, go out and get as many you can, or I let him just let somebody next to him just get an egg. Well, this is what happens. So I'm getting them pumped up. I'm like, just get as many eggs as you can. Once we're done, if there's any kids with the eggs, we'll give them some. And so I'm getting him pumped up. They blow the horn, and he gets instantly scared.
Oh, man.
All the other kids run out, get all the eggs. And my boy is the one that has 5 eggs at the end of this. And we've got kids that have 40 eggs in their basket. Oh, gosh. So it completely backfired.
Yeah, you're going to have to take a different approach. Your son, I've met him. I've met the cash man. And he's smaller, so he's got to play to his other strengths. You probably shouldn't be body checking kids out of the way to get eggs. He's going to have to be more about speed than anything, I think.
He's going to be biting people's ankles and, quick jab steps to get his eggs. But then we went, so we're down in Corning, Iowa, for those folks that don't know my family well, but we're not, I'm not from there. My wife's family's down there. So we're in Corning, and we go to this, I don't know if you saw my tweet, but I went to this bar called literally the Shittily ED in Clarinda, Iowa. And I can't even say what the password is for the Wi-Fi. I thought that was really funny. But Iowa Western is in Clarinda. So there were some college kids in there that knew a little bit about wrestling. I don't want to say any of their names because maybe they don't want people knowing they were there. But literally, it's like a shack in the middle of nowhere. You didn't even, if you drove by it, you would never know it was a bar. And that's right up my alley. Anybody that knows me.
I was just going to say that. That sounds like, Hager would be all over that kind of a bar.
So I just want to know, the Marinos are from Clarinda. Won a state team title there. So I just want to know why they ever left there, because the Shirley D is just the bomb dig. I mean, it's got to be the place to be. So that was a fun little weekend down in Corning and Clarinda. But how was your weekend? Get anything done?
Man, I got Good Friday off of work. I got all my yard work done, so I was good to go for the weekend. Just kind of spent it with friends and family and tried to enjoy the nice weather while we could. It was a little wet, but other than that, just kind of grilled. That's all we did.
Grilling, it's that best time of the season. I love going to Hy-Vee Fairway, picking up some meat and getting her done, having a bunch of beers or pop, whatever you're into. So let's get into it. I mean, 2 days into the week here, and the first thing that I really Monday was busy. We had 2 commitments Alec McDowell committed to Iowa State, and then later in the day, Austin Yant committed to Northern Iowa. And McDowell's just one of those guys, Ross, that a lot of people just don't know a lot about. Did you get a chance to read the article and learn a little bit about him, I guess?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I won't give out a name, but I did get a text after the state tournament to, when he won that state title, I got a text saying like, hey, who is this guy? How'd he look? I mean, maybe not who is he, but how did he look? They kind of wanted to know his D1 potential, what I thought at least. So I thought that was interesting. And then he kind of went on the postseason circuit to get a little bit more interest in him. So definitely I didn't know much about him until he kind of showed up in February there, but he's really built himself into a Division I prospect, by his last, 6 months of wrestling.
I mean, this is the type of kid that you go and you teach in high school or junior high, like, hey, if you don't win a state title, you still have the opportunity to go to the next level. This guy didn't qualify his freshman and sophomore year, ends up qualifying his junior year and getting third, and then ends up winning the 182-pound bracket in 1A, beating the top-ranked wrestler in his class. So, that's the type of stuff that D1 colleges want, or any college really want to just see your progression, see you consistently getting better. Obviously, Alec McDowell got some looks from Kevin Dresser when he stepped in Iowa State. Because it doesn't sound like he was really getting a lot of looks. He was really focused on academics. So when he won that state title, I think that definitely piqued some interest. So that was good to see Alec McDowell go to Iowa State for Kevin Dresser and company, Cyclones. I think if he just keeps getting better, the sky's the limit. Just be kind of curious to see, 184 pounds, or if he goes down to 174 in college, where he ends up at. But the guy that I love, I'm a big fan of Austin Yant ever since, this year really kind of caught my eye with Cheesehead, how he wrestled the state wrestling tournament, the war at West Gym, postseason nationals. Austin Yant goes to Northern Iowa, and this was definitely a sleeper out there, and was getting a lot of picks, a lot of looks after winning that national title.
We love Yant, and like you said, that Cheesehead win. That's a really tough tournament, and to come out on top of that, obviously that should have opened up some eyes. Pretty not too surprising to see him staying local. I think he's kind of always had an affinity for UNI, and that kind of showed up there at the end of the process when you talked to him and he told you Ohio State, Campbell, Fresno State, come calling, and then of course NAIA Power Grandview. I'm sure Nick Mitchell really wanted to get his hands on him, so not that surprising to see him at UNI given the distance from Waverly, and the kind of feeder that Waverly's been into UNI. But you're right, man. This guy's a hammer. We use that term a lot, but he definitely fits that description.
Well, what I thought was, I felt like he was a pretty small 152-pounder, but dude, he said he's going to wrestle anywhere from 65 to 84 in college. So he gets to 84, man. He's going to be putting on some muscle.
First thing I thought of when I read that was Drew Foster. Coming in, he didn't win state. I think he was runner-up at 160 pounds his senior year for Mediapolis. Comes in, wrestles 65. Next season, he comes out 74, goes to 84 mid-season, and then this year, his sophomore year, he's an All-American at 84. So, I don't know if I want to put like a ton of potential, like, Sal in with that expectation, but that was like the very first thing my mind went to was Drew Foster.
Hey, that's I'm sure he's not going to complain. All-American status is, to not be a state champion and be an All-American, that's got to be the first goal. Obviously, national title is the goal when you go to wrestle for Doug Schwab. He expects you to win a title. So kudos to those two guys making their decision. And each guy really is kind of unique in why they chose their schools. Yant grew up wanting to be, in the area. Northern Iowa, Doug Schwab came to Northern Iowa. He held the camp. So two good stories. You can check that up on the website anytime, obviously, of course. But let's dive into a little these new rules, NCAA rules. Those came out to your last week, and they're not in place. Okay, let's not. They're proposed, correct?
Yeah.
So new rules, basically the biggest one I think, obviously the scrambling. I think that one's going to be the biggest question mark. How is that scored, not scored? That's the one that's most debatable, but I think what's good for wrestling is the no headgear. Not good for headgear companies. Cliff King can't be happy, and other companies that do that, but no headgear in college I think is a good idea.
I think they hit it right on the head when they said, these are adults that can make their own decision about how they want to wear, how they want to protect their ears. And, this isn't like football players like getting the option of whether or not they want to wear helmets. It's not concussion protection. It's ear protection. So I'm all in favor for it. I didn't mind wearing headgear when I wrestled, but to each their own. Freestyle, obviously you don't have to wear it. So as far as I go, I don't have an opinion whether a guy wears it or not, or a girl too, I guess I should say.
I'm pretty sure that, when I was in college, we were technically required to wear headgear in practice too. And you get a hot room wearing a headgear, that makes it even horrible. It makes it not fun. And I felt that it actually gave me cauliflower ear because people are pulling on your headgear and it's yanking on your ear. I didn't have cauliflower ear until I went to college and wrestled. So I feel like the headgear actually hurt me more than anything. So, if you're gonna wear a headgear for concussion, obviously the one that are out there, the traditional ones, have nothing to do with concussions. There's Batsois, has a product out there that is trying to work on lightening the load for concussions. I believe LDR Headgear Company has something as well. I believe Danmar has something. So there's a couple companies out there that are kind of focusing or going in that direction to stop concussions. So it'll be interesting to see if, I would say the more percentage of people are just not going to wear headgears unless they end up requiring the athletes to wear these headgears to stop concussions. So, but I think that's a long ways away.
Right. I think it's interesting though, because obviously then it's going to be flipped rule from college to what it is in freestyle, where, in college, if a guy comes out, or in freestyle, if a guy comes out in a headgear, I'm pretty sure the opponent can ask for them to remove it. Isn't that right? Because I feel like it was a couple years ago, the U.S. Open Finals, David Taylor came out with a headgear on, and Jordan Burroughs asked him to take it off.
Yeah, I think Yeah.
You don't really see that happen very often, just a headgear in general. So I think that's the rule. But, in college, I would think that, your opponent wouldn't have that option because, obviously the guy's wearing it for protection. That's why he has it. So I don't know. Just kind of something I thought about when I heard the rule, and I could be completely wrong. That's nothing new.
No, I think you're right there. It'd be interesting to see if they do allow someone to say, no, you can't wear that. But if you look at it as a disadvantage, then you should just wear headgear too. So I could see both ways, I guess, when it comes to the rules. The scrambling thing, I think I just want to know more about, I guess, as far as how it's going to get scored. I want to see, some videos of the actual officials saying what's what. And
Blood Round, Tommy Blood Round, with his Beanie Baby, Beanie Baby. What do you want to call that? His Exhibit A for. I found those hilarious, and he kind of raised some really good points about, if neither guy is like in a Merkel situation, is that going to be two, or who's in control? I don't know. There's just like a lot of questions, and when is the danger? When is a guy actually in danger? So I don't know.
I definitely think it is something that should be looked at because it's kind of changed the sport a little bit. You see people teaching how to get out of a single leg a little differently with more scrambles, check backs. There's lots of different technique that's being taught now to get out of singles, and it's very subjective of, if you're in control or not, and what the officials are going to really have to be consistent with is just reaction time, which is not very good right now when it just comes to takedowns. So, there's some officials give a little bit of reaction time, some don't. That's why you see so many challenges. The reaction time is just kind of a pain in the butt. Whether we have reaction time or there's no reaction time. If they touch, they touch. Like, when you go to review, if they touch, great. But are we?
I mean, I think if a guy's, stuck on his back, like the theory of the rule, if he's stuck on his back and he can't get off, it makes a lot of sense. What I kind of the other opinion I wanted to know from you is, obviously this is kind of moving it more toward a freestyle route. I mean, would you just rather have freestyle exposure for your back? If you're breaking that 90, it's automatically, back points, however they want to score it. Maybe they only give 1 point if there's no takedown control, whatever. Would you rather have it more toward freestyle where any exposure is points, or would you rather try to test out the new way and keep it more based on you got to have the takedown to get back exposure?
Ooh, my initial thought would be to just make it like freestyle. That way it's not real subjective. If there's exposure, there's exposure. And you wouldn't see as many of those scrambles. Part of me kind of likes the scrambles because it makes it interesting. You don't know who's going to come out on top, and but sometimes it just drags the matches on, and you see a lot of stalling. So there's just so many different ways you could see that those positions going. It's hard to tell. But first reaction would be to obviously make it towards freestyle. I want to see the push out in folk style. So, and it'd be better for us as a competing on the international side of things, getting more people aware of, I guess, how not to get exposed and to work through those positions. So,
I would agree with you in terms of if we want to focus a lot more toward transitioning to the international level, if we want to eliminate guys just going to their back and that stall tactic of just grabbing an ankle. But I think right now, I haven't seen this new rule implemented and how it would look, I guess, but I think I'm more in favor of staying away from straight freestyle back exposure, though. That's kind of where I'm leaning. You kind of hit on it. I like the scrambles, but more or less, folk style is just all about control. So to me, having the takedown to earn back points has always been something that's just kind of ingrained in folk style. So to go away from that just seems like, I don't know, seems like we're completely changing. You might as well just go complete freestyle at that point. It's kind of, I guess, and I don't know if I like that in college wrestling.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I think we got to try it out, and you can have test events. We had the All-Star Classic. You've got other different events that you could try this stuff in. You don't have to implement it right away, and just see how work through those bugs. Just kind of like why we did the push-out rule. Kind of figured out things how that should be scored. Obviously, the Lara Barnes match, everyone remembers that. So,
but we're learning.
Yeah, we're learning. So the NCAA sure as heck can learn. They need to. That's for sure. I think the video review, having that in the third party, I mean, there's no other option. I mean, every coach knows that it needs to happen. I think the officials know that it really needs to happen. NCAA knows it needs to happen. I mean, you can't have the same official overturning their own call. No one likes to be wrong.
It's easily the biggest no-brainer move. I mean, out of all the new rules, it should have been like number one. Probably. Well, the weight allowance is probably a good thing, but it should have been right up there. Like, yeah, this is the obvious rule.
Yeah. So let's move on to, I guess, some college coaching rumors, not so rumors. What kind of been happening? Really, I think the whole Iowa situation, really is. Those coaches are settled in. I don't think anybody's leaving or coming in anytime soon. There were some rumblings that there could be, there were some coaches on campus, but I don't think there's anything changing. At Iowa State, though, the outgoing coaches, Angel Escobedo, we kind of touched on this last week. I think that you're going to see him either at Pitt or Indiana. Obviously, you got to lean towards Indiana due to the fact that's where he's an alumni at. They'd need a lower weight coach, and the question marks really I think are Trent and Travis Paulson. Did they wait too long to make this move? I don't think the NCAA hurt them or their finish. I just think the whole body of work of what's been going on the last 2 years hurts them. It's not that they're not bad coaches, I don't think. I just think, ADs look at that and like, well, could we really hire you as a head coach? So I think you're going to see them in a lower level position, kind of like Escobedo with the associate head coach, who's actually getting a raise out of volunteer status if if that's the kind of move that he's looking for, getting out of competing. So I've heard rumors that Travis could be maybe going to Virginia. That's kind of been thrown out there. And Trent, I've heard Campbell, I've heard Pitt. So the Paulson boys are a little bit of question marks right now, I think.
I think you're right. And honestly, I don't know if it'd just be kind of like a 1-year deal or maybe 2 years, depending on what jobs open up at the end of the next year. But I think, the timing was not great that, Dresser got to take over the program, even though they were still running it the last few weeks. Then there was the question whether they would, maybe get retained by Dresser, even though that looked pretty unlikely the entire time. They kind of were left on the hook where they want to stay at the school that, they put so much blood, sweat, and tears into. So I think it just kind of was a bad process for them, and I think like you said, they might have to go somewhere, take a lower position for a year, maybe 2, 3, and then hit the ground running at a new program once the openings create themselves, which they always do.
So we'll keep an eye on that, obviously.
What do you think about? So obviously, this Pitt situation, Tony. We kind of talked about it last time. We're obviously an Iowa podcast, but there's been some connections with Pitt there. It was a crazy process where it seemed like the entire step of the way we knew who was applying, who was getting interviewed, when the interview was, how bad the interview was immediately following, and we knew. So like it's pretty obvious that, it sounds bad to say, but Keith Gavin was like the 5th choice. And another reason is probably because Chris Bono, the number 4 guy they interviewed, turned down the job for twice the amount of salary he was getting at South Dakota State, is the report.
Yeah, that Bono turning it down for twice the amount he's getting paid, I guess, it's just a testament to how much support he has at South Dakota State. Pitt not being able to make a decision just shows, I think, a little bit of, I don't want to say lack of commitment, just willing to make decisions on, when they need to make decisions. In wrestling, coaches demand stuff right away and they want it yesterday. So maybe some of that uncertainty of them being able to make a decision kind of turned him away. But the way that the media got a hold of who was doing what. I think some were a little bit of rumors, like the Pat Santero thing. I think that was kind of a little blown out of proportion, a little bit of what, saying there was a contract. Pat says there was never a contract. Talked to them for maybe 5-10 minutes. Lou Roselli. I just think some of it was a little stretched a little bit. What wrestling media tends to do. Sometimes we tend to stretch really kind of what the story is. I'm not a big fan of like, breaking news, nothing's changed. Coach says, I'm just not going to go anywhere. Like, I think that news got a little blown out of proportion of what it is. It's like saying, breaking news, Penn State, top-ranked team in the country next year. We just kind of know. I don't know, just stupid stuff, and I think anyway, it's just a waste of time. But
we like to sensationalize as much as we can, apparently. But
yeah, so the Pitt job, Keith Gavin, like you said, obviously he's going to take it for the money, but he definitely had to have something in the back of his mind being like, man, I was kind of like the fifth choice. So, but hey, man, job's a job, and he's the head man now, and he's one of the nicest guys in the sport, really. So it'll be interesting to see if I kind of almost see him as almost too nice, like, but I don't know him, like, personally. I just feel like interviewing him and seeing it around him, is he aggressive enough to go in and try to steal recruits from Cale Sanderson? Because he's going to have to, and the rest of the country, quite frankly, are going to need Keith Gavin to start getting recruits from out east. So good luck to him. Next topic, I guess I wanted to touch base on kind of this Iowa State Hawkeye wrestling, their clubs that these guys are kind of going back and forth, raising a bunch of money. Hawkeye Wrestling message board, they raised like over $70K now. And then Iowa State's over here like, oh, hey, we raised $850,000. So it's just kind of crazy to see the two. Well, actually, I'm not surprised what Iowa State's doing with Kevin Dresser and his brother, what they're doing. But Iowa, just kind of fans just really stepping up to the plate and is trying to get something going. There's a donor that put up $50K. That's a big part of it, and he's already pledged to do another $1 million for a wrestling facility. What do you think the possibility of? We know that Iowa State's probably putting a lot of their money into the RTC, but Iowa, what do you think they're going to use this money towards? Do you think they could, they need the upgrades to facilities? Where's that money going to go?
It's kind of crazy to see that. I mean, you were the one that put that message from Bob Nichols that he put on the Hawkeye Report. I mean, you really blasted it out there that he wants, this facility. Rutgers, there's Campbell. They're putting money into a new wrestling complex, whatever you want to call it. So it's kind of crazy thinking after everything they've really done to Carver lately that they would think about a new wrestling facility, but I haven't actually talked to the brands, but so I don't have inside info, but I've heard that there's some pretty positive discussions going on with the administrative people at Iowa about maybe putting together submission to build a wrestling complex there in Iowa City, which would, I mean, if wrestling's going to be an arms race with coaches, having, a well-funded RTC wrestling club, if you got to have everything besides just coaching and great workout partners, Iowa obviously needs to step it up, and they got $1 million already, and, things could move pretty quick.
The facilities are not comparable to some of the other schools. I mean, the locker room, really, the whole locker room and athlete area needs an upgrade. The wrestling room's great, I think. There's TVs, plenty of space, I think, for wrestling. There's plenty of space for fans and coaches to kind of interact there. The locker room, not the locker room, but the weight room is definitely outdated. Just not enough room, not as fancy as some of the others as well. So a standing only a facility would be really huge for the Iowa Hawkeyes and really kind of get them out of this whole kind of like old school, rough, tough, farm boys, like let's get some fancy stuff in there where some of these city boys are coming from. And let's be real, like there's just not a whole lot of farm boys out there anymore. I was just talking to somebody about this weekend. Like, Iowa's known for having a bunch of, kids that throw hay and scoop cattle, and there's just not a lot of that anymore, which is not not bad, but I mean at the end of the day, Iowa just doesn't have a lot of those farm boys anymore. So they want the bright, fancy, shiny stuff, TVs in the lockers, things that freshen up your shoes. So just little things like that could sway a recruit, especially some of these top recruits that demand so much. So. Kudos out of them. I know I'm going to be at the Iowa State Social on Thursday night at Ankeny. That's going to be at 6:30 at the District. So if you're an Iowa State fan, a wrestling fan in general, I think you should definitely come to the Social on Thursday night and just kind of mingle with crazy wrestling fans. So I'll definitely be there. So come find me.
What else you got, Hager? Because I got a hot topic for you. that we blew by last week without even thinking about it.
I would say the only thing would be Lars campaigning for Keaton Gertz to get in the rankings on Flow. Calling Willie out for not ranking Gertz, and then Willie changes his ranking to put Keaton Gertz in there. It worked.
Lars didn't get name dropped on the Flow podcast today. I had to listen to it, but just because I wanted to hear that part. But yeah, Willie brought it up that he overlooked Keaton Gertz. He's obviously got all those big wins. I think it's Joey Silva. I mean, Alex Thompson, we remember when he beat him, how big that was out at UWW Cadets. Obviously coming off that big win against Bergeyland at War at West Gym. I mean, so he got those wins, but, Gertz, he's not a farm boy, but, he sees that typical, like, I don't care, he's just going to come in there, he's going to do the work, and he doesn't care if he's ranked, because he's going to go out there and he's going to go for those wins, and he's obviously put them up, right? I mean, we've taken notice, we've tried to blow him up as much as we can, and so if he's not going to get recognized, that at the end of the day he doesn't care, he's going to UNI. And eventually you're going to have to recognize how good Keaton is, because he's going to be one of those guys that puts himself, up that list of, guys that need to be taken heed of.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think it really matters where he's ranked. I look at national rankings as a recruiting tool for a lot of colleges. So, if you deserve to be in there and you don't have a college picked out, you want to be in those national rankings, because colleges do look at it. We got colleges looking at our Iowa rankings of who to swoop up in these maybe some of these smaller classes around Iowa. So college coaches use that as a kind of they can't be out and watching these kids compete, so they kind of base it off those national rankings. So if he was like a junior, sophomore, yeah, they definitely matter. But as a senior, somebody's already committed, it doesn't really matter. They don't really do a whole lot. So, but yeah, what do we miss?
So last week, we talked about the Alex Thompson interview that was done, the overtime piece we had, and we kind of glanced over the fact that he's going to be wrestling. He's planning on wrestling 120 for Fargo. Now, could you think of what would make that significant?
Off the top of my head would be Brody Teske.
Brody Teske.
Yeah, Brody Teske would be.
These two are obviously, maybe even going back 2 years, but definitely at the beginning of this year, without a doubt, these guys are the top two guys in the state. We've never been able to really get that match. They're both undefeated in their high school careers. Could have had a chance to wrestle at the Council Bluffs Classic this last season if they would have been at the same weight, but they've never been at the same weight, and we could finally get it.
Yeah, we could see it, because you would think that they're going to want to be around the weight that they are going for Fargo. So USA State, the junior cadets coming up. That's what, less than 4 weeks away. So we could see a Teske Thompson matchup, within the next 60 days. That's pretty awesome.
That would be straight fire.
Yeah, well, we tried to get that set up, but the Thompson camp is saying, well, if Teske wants to wrestle us, he's had the opportunity to bump up, or he can make it happen. So I look for Teske to definitely not. If Thompson's going down, I look for Teske to go after and try to get that match. He's not going to run away from it, because I think Teske does. He hasn't said this, but I think he feels slighted a little bit. 2-3-time state champs, number 1, number 2. It's always been Thompson, because really just kind of how many points he put up as a freshman, sophomore, his Fargo, UWW results. Teske doesn't really have those, so I think he feels slighted in Iowa as not the top ranked wrestler. So that would definitely help his argument as a pound for pound top ranked wrestler in the state. We kind of go back and forth who should be number 1, who's better built for college, and it's tough. That's that's definitely tough. I mean, Teskey's got a little bit more size to him. I think Thompson's a little bit quicker.
But
Thompson lets fly. Teskey's a little bit more controlled. I mean, both have definitely their style, and it's going to be fun to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, that's a match that has appeal nationally, right? I mean, we're talking about guys that are ranked top 5 at 120 and 126, in their weight in the nation.
Yeah,
they're going to. I mean, that's a matchup, and I really hope that we get the opportunity to see it. I don't know if they'll do it for state. If Thompson will, I think he skipped state last year and just did a regional because he was at a Greco team camp. So I don't know what his plans are, but I mean, if that's the match we've all been dying to see the last 2 years, and we got a pretty hot shot at seeing it.
Yeah, it probably happened at Northern Plains Regional if that's if they decide to skip state. That's where that could happen probably. So. Yeah, good catch. Good catch on that weight. So let's make that happen. I was just poke the bear a little bit here. So let's see if we can make it happen. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot. I got junk day in Johnston to deal with here today. Throwing stuff out on the yard that I don't want anymore. Do you guys have that out in North Liberty? You city boys out in Iowa City have that?
End of the month, we got it coming up here in North Liberty. I think I just got a box spring to throw out right now. I don't know if I got a whole lot of other crap, but I'm sure I'll find more.
Now, do people in North Liberty, do they drive around in big trucks and trailers and come pick stuff up like in Johnston here?
Honestly, I think it's always been later. My wife has a cab. They have a family cabin up on the Mississippi, so I feel like we always miss it. And now that it's in April, that's still a little earlier than we usually go up. It's usually kind of flooded up there, so after seeing here pictures, I'm kind of excited to stick around. Maybe I'm going to grab a couple lawn chairs and grab a 6-pack of my favorite and just kind of see what's going down in the neighborhood.
Let's just say I woke up this morning, looked outside, expecting a lot of my stuff to be gone. I actually had more stuff. People took stuff off of their trailer and they just threw it on my lawn and picked something. They picked something else out of my yard to make room. So they just swapped out stuff. So it's crazy.
I just figured maybe one of your buddies came over and just dumped all his stuff.
Well,
that'd be pretty funny.
Well, I encourage it because I like seeing people dig through that stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I when I'm driving around town, I look for stuff. I'm like, if there's anything my kid could use. I got a brand new hose I got the other day. I mean, there's some goodies in there. One year I gave up taking a prosthetic leg. I gave that up. Someone threw that out. I was like, I don't know why I would need it, but
what they did get a new one?
I got a new one. It was an old wooden leg.
Yeah, I don't need this leg anymore.
Yeah, I got a prosthetic one.
Holy smokes!
Metal. All right. Well, that's it. Potentially Dangerous, episode 85, presented by MyHouse. I'm Tony Hager. This is Ross Barczyk. As always, subscribe, listen, review, Potentially Dangerous.